Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well, staying happy and healthy and hydrated. The three H's. Uh, Halloween's really creeping up on us, isn't it? So, I thought that I would do another Bigfoot video, but this one is just one story, straight through. And I'll let you decide at the end if it's real or fake or whatever you think it is, maybe somewhere in between. It's up to you. So, as always, pull up a stump and let's jump into the video about Bigfoot. My parents own some land that's been passed down to them from my great grandfather. My great grandfather bought the land as part of a deer lease around the World War I era. And then later on, my grandfather built a log cabin on the land in the late 40s and continued to expand it until the 80s. And now what was a log cabin is now the size of a small house, and it even has an upper story and everything like that. My dad then in turn modernized it with a septic tank, solar panels, and even paid to run a phone line and internet out there since a neighbor had service just a mile away. Downstairs is the living room slash TV room. There's a kitchen and bathroom and a small study with shelves full of books and all that stuff on hunting, fishing, trapping, etc. As a kid, I used to spend hours reading books on African safaris, a bunch of stuff about hunting in the area, as well as the Foxfire series. But now upstairs, there's 2 bedrooms and a utility closet. The phone line and the batteries for the solar panels are both inside this closet. The place is pretty old school and cozy as hell. I loved going up there in the summer and for deer season during the fall. My dad was always real nervous about me walking around the woods alone, and I always made sure I took a dog and a gun even when I was 10 years old. Told me to come back to the cabin immediately if I saw or heard anything weird. Never saw anything unusual, but as a kid I sometimes got a creepy feeling like I was being kinda watched or something out in the woods, and I could hear a twig snap in the distance. Usually when that happened, the dog would tear after whatever it was, and I'd either keep playing or head back. So fast forward to my adulthood, and I realized that college isn't exactly for me, and my parents can't pay for it. And I sure as hell can't pay for it on my own, and my grades, while decent, aren't good enough to get me a scholarship or anything, so I drop out of my sophomore year. My plan was then to just take the classes one at a time at the local community college until I had enough for a degree. This worked for about a semester, and then I said screw it and just went and worked in construction for a year. I saved up all my money, and since I was living with my parents still, I didn't have much in the way of expenses. Then, I got an idea. I go up to my dad and I say, hey, I haven't been to the cabin in a while. I've got plenty of money saved up, nearly 10 grand. So I was thinking, what if I moved out of the house and into the cabin? I'll pay for the utilities, which is pretty much just phone and internet since the water was from a well and the electricity was solar. I'll do some upkeep and just sort of rough it on my own for a while. What do you think? My dad is all for it. He thinks that it'll teach me some self-sufficiency. My mom is worried that I'll cut myself chopping firewood and bleed to death or something like that. Wait out in the woods where nobody will find me. We end up vetoing mom, and I pack up all my shit into my old-ass Chevy Blazer. It was an army surplus one with rattle can camo. No air conditioning, but it ran like a champ until I totaled it driving on the ice one winter. So, I prepare to head out up to the cabin. Just before I leave, Dad pulls me aside and tells me to remember to always keep a gun with me at all times and to take both dogs. I was going to take my dog, which is a German Shepherd named Kaiser, but he insists that I take his Australian Shepherd, Baxter, as well. Kaiser is young and energetic, and Baxter is old, laid back, and half Kaiser's size, but he's definitely top dog, and makes sure that Kaiser knows it. My dad tells me that there's dangerous things in the woods, and not to be macho. If I get scared or if something happens, come home immediately. And I ask him, dangerous like what? Bears? Now, bears weren't exactly common around the cabin, but every now and then they would wander through occasionally. So he says, sure, just like bears. Have fun, stay safe, and call us when you get there. I get up to this cabin and the scenery is absolutely beautiful. Both dogs are glad to be out of the truck too. So I unlock the cabin and all of the windows to air the place out because it smells like dust and mothballs, and bring my stuff in. I remember to call my parents and let them know that I got there okay. So my cell phone has no service, obviously, and the cabin phone is, I forgot, a rotary phone. So after I do that, I unplug the old-ass TV in the living room and replace it with my flat-screen one from home. It's bigger, has better picture, and it uses less electricity anyways, so it's less of a strain on the batteries, especially at night. I grab one of the 2 rifles with me, a Gibbs Quest 2 Extreme 308 carbine. It's been my deer gun ever since I was 15. So I whistle for the dogs and they follow me to the outdoors. So with the dogs out there with me, I start patrolling the property. I look at the bushes that need to be cleared out. There's a wasp nest on one side of the deer blinds, and there's weeds that need to be removed, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, like a little bit of work that needs to be done. Nothing unusual, just like remote land that hasn't been maintained for most of a year. After patrolling, I decide to go back into the cabin and cook dinner and watch a movie. I watched the original Thing, flanked on either side of the couch by my dogs, and I was eating some chili. And partway through the movie, I noticed that the dogs keep perking their ears up and turning their heads like they hear something, but then they settle back down after a few seconds. And right at the part in the Thing where the Thing eats the guy's hands when he tries to use the defibrillator, there's a loud bang from the kitchen, and dishes and clatter all over the floor. The dogs tear into the kitchen, barking and snarling. I follow them to see just what the hell is going on in the kitchen. The pot I cooked of chili is on the floor, with a couple pans left out on the counter, and I think, how the hell did that happen? I suddenly notice the screen on the window next to the stove is missing. I look out and see it on the ground. The dogs sprint outside like guided missiles, barking and howling the second I open the door. And I'm thinking that it's just a raccoon or something trying to get at the chili. It's just whatever. So I go out and I replace the screen and shut the window, and I clean up the mess and call the dogs back in. The dogs come back panting and excited. I go around shutting every downstairs window and then finish watching my scurry movie. And it's getting late by this time, so I figure I should probably head upstairs and go to bed. Both the dogs follow me, and they lay on the floor at the foot of the bed. I lay there in the dark, listening to the breeze rustling in the trees and stuff. But I wake up around 3 a.m. and I hear a weird warbling noise. It sounds like a bird, but almost not. It kind of sounds like something or someone trying to imitate a bird call. And I look out the window, but I just don't see anything besides the pitch black. So I roll over and think I'm just half asleep or whatever, and I just drift off. So the next day rolls around, and I take my rifle and the dogs out with me to chase all the wasps, spiders, and ants, whatever, out of the deer blinds properly. I clear some of the brush from the trails, and I give up about 5 minutes into repairing a wooden footbridge over this little creek that's in the back. And I think, I have a couple months to do it, and screw it. So one of the dogs, Kaiser, keeps staring off in the distance and snarling. Baxter gives no shits and just kind of chills at my feet the whole time. So I head back to the cabin and eat lunch, and then head out to walk the trails again and see where the deer are moving. Kaiser runs off into the woods barking. Baxter and I follow just for the hell of it. We stumbled across what looks like a giant bird nest on the ground, but it's made of sticks and leaves and other crap. It's big enough that I could put a bed in it. Both dogs are going crazy, sniffing everywhere. There's a pile of nuts under a nearby bush, like a squirrel was making a cache, and some small bones, probably from a rabbit. I notice this weird kind of musty smell, but it's just faint, so I shrug it off as just forest smells and it having been there for a while. Whatever animal was bedding down here probably won't come back now that the dogs have tromped all through it and peed on it all over the landscape. I finally pry the dogs away and head back to the cabin. So I spend an hour or two just looking at old books in the study. My grandpa used to keep anything and everything for a bookmark, so I'm finding like pressed down flowers, leaves, old dollar bills, coupons, etc. in the books. The nostalgia settles over me like a comfy blanket. I get hungry and head to the kitchen to cook some beef stew for dinner. So I'm stirring the stew on the stove, and suddenly I get this creepy feeling. I look up, and there's something staring at me through my window, not 2 feet away. I literally yell, "Oh shit," and drop my spoon as I backpedal away from the window. Whatever it is, or whoever it is, it's huge, shaggy with reddish brown hair, deep-set black eyes under this caveman-looking forehead. The head's kind of conical, flat, and has a broad nose. I can't tell what the hell it is, but it looks kind of like a gorilla. Both the dogs come in to investigate the disturbance and catch the slight smell of the thing, and they go ballistic, barking and snarling and everything else. Whatever it is, this does not make it happy, and it slams its fist against the side of the cabin, knocking the frying pans off the wall. And my dogs don't back down and are still growling and snarling. I move into the living room and grab my rifle, trying to keep my eye on the thing the entire time. Just as I reach the gun, it stands up. I was at eye level with me looking through the window, so it took me by surprise when it stood up even taller, at least 7 or 8 feet. I run back to the window and it's walking away into the trees. I turn on the outside light and open the door. Both dogs take off after it, and it hauls ass into the trees, screeching like a banshee. I fire a shot into the air to discourage it further, and then call the dogs, but they won't come back. Barking and screeching fade into the distance. I keep calling the dogs, and they don't come back for over an hour, and when they do, they're covered in mud and briars. I get the dogs inside and clean them up eventually, and top off my rifle. I sit there trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Either this is a prank, or some guy in a gorilla costume, or a deformed bear came back and tried to steal my food again. Either way, between the dogs and the gunshot, it's not coming back, hopefully. So I eat my stew and I clean up immediately so the smell doesn't attract the thing again. I double check that the downstairs is locked up tight and the outside lights are on, basically just the porch lights, one outside the kitchen and back door, and one outside the front door. I head upstairs and take the rifle with me. The dogs stay glued to me the entire time. And there's no friggin' way that I'm staying downstairs where that thing can watch me through the windows. I finally fall asleep as I realize that whatever it was, it's probably gone now. So I wake up with no idea what time it is, and there's that warbling, chirping noise again. And then whack. And I think, oh, what the hell's going on? And there's another whack. I look out the window and I don't see anything. Whack. Something is hitting the side of the cabin. Both dogs are whimpering or growling or whatever. I shine my flashlight out the window and I don't see anything. I turn off the light and wait about 30 seconds. Whack. This time I saw it. A rock bounced off the side of the cabin right below my window. And I'm thinking, some guy is in the tree throwing rocks at my cabin. And I yell out, "Hey, this is my property. I've got a gun. Get the hell out before I call the sheriff." Silence for a long minute, and then whack. This time a rock hits the window frame about a good foot from my head. And I think, okay, you want to play games? I stick my rifle out the window and fire off a shot in the general direction where the rocks are coming from. I hear that weird bird call noise and something big goes tearing through the brush. And I think, oh, nope, screw this. I shut all the upstairs windows, toss my rifle on the bed, and put my pistol in my belt. It's time for the heavy artillery. I grab my FAL from the closet. I slap in a 20-round mag and chamber around. I put on a headlamp and I grab both dogs and head out the back door into the woods. And I'm thinking, you're not getting away this time, asshole. I'll teach you to screw with me in my cabin. The dogs run off in the dark, barking, and I follow in hot pursuit. About half a mile from the cabin, I'm beginning to rethink this whole run into the woods at night with an unknown creature kind of plan that I had. I can't see my dogs, but I can hear them. They're both definitely chasing something. I hear the loud screech from before. I run to catch up with the dogs and trip on a rock and faceplant, but adrenaline makes me get right back up and keep going without really noticing the fall or feeling anything. Suddenly I hear my dog yelp in pain, but I can't tell which one. I run even faster, shouting for the dogs, and suddenly I see something looming on the trail ahead of me. It's Baxter. He's limping and coming back. His left hip is bleeding. It looks like somebody hit him with a rock. Now I'm just pissed. I keep heading down the trail to catch up with Kaiser. Baxter limps along beside me. I hear a loud screeching and Kaiser barking, and it seems to indicate that he may have whatever it is cornered or up a tree or something. I'm almost there when something whizzes through the air and almost hits me. That came from a different direction of the screeching and barking, and I'm thinking, oh my god, there's two of them. I fire a shot in the general direction where the rock came from and call for Kaiser. Baxter won't leave my side. A big stick flies through the air and lands at my feet. I can't see where it came from with just my headlamp. I fire another shot and decide, screw this, I'm heading back to the cabin. I keep firing shots occasionally to keep whatever it is throwing things at bay, but I can hear it crashing through the trees and brush. Kaiser is still barking and won't come when called. Nearly back to the cabin when I hear Kaiser yelp. I call his name for the upteenth time and I hear something crashing through the brush and aim my rifle at the noise. Kaiser appears at Mach 2 and runs right past me and keeps going. And I'm thinking, oh, thanks asshole, just leave me for dead, why don't ya? Every now and then I'll fire another shot into the direction of whatever the noise is to try and discourage pursuit. Then I keep hauling ass back towards the cabin, and with Baxter right on my heels. Kaiser is actually already waiting for me, whining and scratching at the door to be let in. He's a big dog, and one that's taken and killed a coyote, and that got in our yard one time, and I'm thinking, what the hell has him so scared? So me and the dogs, all three of us, pile into the cabin. I reload my rifle, and I start checking the dogs over. Baxter has a nasty bruise where the rock hit him, but only a little bit of bleeding. Kaiser appears to be unharmed, but something scared the absolute shit out of him. I run upstairs and barricade the door behind me and open the window so I can shoot at anything that's approaching the property from that side of the house. I'm thinking I should probably call my dad or the sheriff, but then I remember that I took the phone downstairs. I hear this rustling noise in the tree line and more of that warbling noise, but nothing comes out. Or at least I can't really see any more rocks or anything being thrown at my cabin. I finally relax and start to feel safe around dawn, but with no sleep and the adrenaline wearing off, all I can really do is hang my gun up before I just pass out on the bed. I wake up around noon or so, I think, and I make a sandwich for lunch and think about my situation. Whatever they are, either escaped circus gorillas, a BIGFOOT, a mutant bear, whatever it is, there's at least two of them and they're both really big. They're also not particularly friendly, but I also get the impression that they're not any less of a threat than a person, and they could be more malicious if they wanted to. I think they're more harassing me in revenge for scaring them off with the dogs and the gunshots when one of them tried to reach through the window and steal my food. I decide to set a trap. I empty an old musty can of deer corn on the ground and spread it around a leaf pile right where I can perfectly aim from the bedroom window. Then I pour a can of soup onto the pile as an additional bait and I head back inside. Hopefully they'll take the bait and I'll just shoot one and bring it back as proof or to find out what the hell these things are. I keep my gun belt on an FAL within arm's reach all day long, just in case they come back in the daylight. I just sit and watch movies all day, looking out the window, checking the bait pile every few minutes. Both dogs are pretty nervous but don't seem to have anything actively setting them off. They stick to me like Velcro all day. The night arrives and I go around double checking all the downstairs doors and windows to make sure they're locked. I set up my bedroom window with a perfect view of the bait pile and wait in ambush. About an hour or so into my vigil, I notice the outside light is getting dim. And I'm thinking, no, why is this happening? I suddenly realized that I had the lights on the cabin on all last night and all day today, and that it was cloudy and overcast, so the solar panels weren't charging the battery very well with all the lights and the TV running. I go to the utility closet between the bedrooms to check the batteries, and they're both almost dead. Even if I shut off all the lights except for the two outside, they won't last very long. And I think, well, that's what generators are for, so the noise may scare the critters away. It might not. I guess I'll have to try. So I head downstairs and I shut off all the lights as I go and brace myself. The generator's in the front porch in this little enclosure, but so nobody steals it. And I have to actually go outside to start it. I open the door and shoo the dogs outside. They seem to indicate me that there isn't anything around at the moment. I set my rifle down, unlock the generator enclosure, and flip all the right switches and yank the pull cord. Other than when I first got to the cabin and ran it to make sure that it would actually run, it hasn't been properly used or started in months, so it takes 6 tries before it actually starts up. I grab my rifle and call the dogs and head back inside. I go into the kitchen and flip the switch that switches from the solar batteries to the power generator. The inside lights are all turned off, but the outside lights are still on and then go from really dim to full power. The kitchen window is dark, something is blocking the light, and I realize that one of these things is hunched over and peering through the window trying to see inside. I stifle a shout and aim my rifle at its face and fire 5 or 6 rounds as fast as I can pull the trigger. I must have jerked the trigger because the window exploded in a spray of glass and the thing howled like I hit it. But instead of dying from a gunshot wound to the face, it just turned and walked off into the woods. I run to the window and look outside, but I don't see anything. I just hear more warbling and what sounds like a person moaning in pain and sobbing coming from the tree line. And I'm thinking, nope, I'm done. Screw this, I'm out. Seriously, I don't want to do this anymore. I run out the front door with both dogs, lock the cabin behind me, jump in the Blazer and haul ass into town where I can get some cell reception. I immediately call my dad and tell him everything. He says he's coming out to meet me and to stay put. Somewhere around 2 hours later, he shows up and he pulls into the truck stop that I've been waiting at and has me repeat the story to him again, and then follows me out to the cabin. The generator is still running and the outside lights are on. We clear the cabin and there are no intruders. Then we send the dogs outside. They mill around the outside kitchen window near the bait pile, but don't seem to think anything is around. Dad finds some blood under the window and follows a trail of it to the tree line. He's smarter than me and doesn't go into the woods in the dark. We clean out the broken glass and board up the broken window. Dad swaps his shotgun for my Gibbs rifle that I left upstairs, and we discuss what the hell's going on, and he mentions that he's seen them twice. Once he saw the small one as a kid, and he was running around playing like I did and came across like one of them drinking out of the creek or something. It saw him, hooted at him like a monkey, and then ran off. He wasn't sure if he was just imagining it or if he really saw it, but either way, it wasn't much bigger than he was at the time and just ran away, so it didn't seem that dangerous. He changed his mind years later when he was an adult. He was in a tree blind waiting for a deer, and a full-grown one stepped out of the trees and started eating his deer corn. He was debating shooting at it when it noticed him and walked over to the tree. Then it reached up and nearly touched his foot. The thing was that tall. Dad panicked and threw a full can of beer at it, and missed. It reached for him again. It was like chattering like a bird or something. He grabbed a second beer can out of his mini cooler, and this time he beamed it right on top of the head. It howled and ran off into the trees where he couldn't see it. And then it started throwing handfuls of rocks and sticks at him. He fired a shot to scare it off, climbed down from the blind, and ran back inside the cabin. He'd never seen it again since, but knowing it was out there always freaked him out really bad, which is why he had me take the dog and the gun with me as a kid. He never told anyone what he'd seen because he didn't want them to think he was crazy or make fun of him or say he was just drunk and seeing things. Well, now 2 of us have seen the same damn thing. They didn't come back all that night. We headed into town to get a replacement window when the morning came. We made sure the cabin was secure. I put all my stuff in the Blazer and we drove home. We didn't go back until deer season. There was no sign that the things had tried breaking into the cabin since we left. I haven't seen or heard them since. Never tried to follow the blood trail in the daylight, so I have no idea if how seriously I wounded it or if it was just like a flesh wound or an abrasion or something. Now here's what I saw and heard. These are some details. The thing was about 7 or 8 feet tall, wide and muscular like a gorilla, but it stood upright like a person. The head was conical. It was bullet-shaped and had a deep-set black eyes with a heavy brow like a stereotypical caveman or gorilla, a flat, broad nose. Its mouth was kind of stuck out like an ape or something. I never saw its teeth, though, and it had small jug ears that stuck out just the side of its head. It was covered in head to toe in rust-colored reddish-brown hair, long and coarse-looking. It didn't seem to have hair on its face or hands, though, but it was really dark out and I was scared shitless, so I can't exactly say for certain. And the rest of the details are him describing the smell as being like a wet animal kind of smell and very musty smelling. That there was definite signs of intelligence or tool usage when they threw rocks and sticks at him. The vocalizations were like a chirping kind of noise, or something like a bird was trying to make. And he says that he knows there were two, even though he never saw the other one at any given time. So what do you think? Is the story real? Or is it fake? Is it somewhere in between, like an exaggeration? Let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed the story, either way, please like and subscribe and maybe comment and say that you liked it and stuff like that. It helps get more views and all that junk. So I hope you all have a good night, day, weekend, weekday, whenever you're seeing this. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.